for coming this evening. We want to take this opportunity to go over this policy with our parents. We had most of the students here last week one day and talked about this. We don't want there to be any surprises. This policy was actually adopted the previous year by the school board to be implemented this year, but we had so many complications with COVID and some students being remote, we just put it on the back burner. So now we're going to start this in the 21-22 school year. So we want to make sure everyone's fully aware of what it involves and how it can benefit your students. So this is a FCISD random drug testing program. FNF local is the board policy. We will post a copy of that on the webpage, but it's also under the school board section on their policy. It can be looked up at any time. Okay, the purpose of this, why are we doing this? To prevent injury, illness, and harm from the use of illegal drugs, help enforce a drug-free educational environment, deter student use of illegal drugs, and undermine the effects of peer pressure by providing students a legitimate reason to say no to drug use. And that last bullet point, to me, is one of the best things that can come from this, is that our students have a reason if they get put in an awkward peer pressure position, that they can say, no, I could be drug tested at my school at any time and I want to keep doing whatever it is I'm doing to compete. Who is included in this program? Students in grades 9 through 12 who participate in school-sponsored extracurricular activities. Participants in all UIL sanctioned activities, as well as cheerleading and dance drill team. Any student who requests a permit to park a vehicle on the campus, and any student who signs up for voluntary drug testing. I think at our high school we will have very few students that are not involved in one of these things, but if them and their parents choose to, they can also participate in the program even if they are not involved or don't drive. Who's included? All UIL sports, UIL academics, dance, cheer, band, FFA. We don't have a lot of FCCLA, but we may at some point. Welding, all students parking on campus. We will have parking permits next year. They will be of no cost for the original permit, but we're going to ask students to show proof of driver's license and insurance to be able to park on campus, so in a way to help keep our parking lot a little bit safer. Substances that will be tested, we'll test for alcohol, amphetamines, methamphetamine and regular amphetamine, cocaine, cannabinoids, which is marijuana, opiates such as codeine, morphine, heroin, and phenylcyclidine, PCP, and angel dust. Barbiturates, benzodiazepines, Valium and Xanax are more common names for them, methadone, methaqualone, propoxyphene, metabolites of any of these substances, and synthetic drugs. And that's where you have like the K2 and things like that. The scope of the testing. All students participating in the covered events will be tested on the first test date at the beginning of school. So first time around, everybody gets tested. Students who enter the program after initial testing will be tested on the first available random test date following the entry in a covered activity. Like if a student comes in from another school, or I don't know why else they would enter late, but if we have something like that happens, everyone will be tested at least once, and that will be the initial testing. Random testing shall be conducted up to 8 times throughout the school year, and the testing laboratory shall select the testing dates. I mean, they'll get with us so it's not on a holiday or something, but we don't have, they'll let us know when they're coming, but not very far in advance. No less than 10% and no more than 50% of students participating will be randomly selected for each random test date. Students will not receive prior notice of testing date or time. And this is something that they will send to Mr. Pavelic, and I will probably be notified that morning, so I know when to start calling kids. We will not have a lot of advance notice. That's the positive of it, that nobody will know. Absence, refusal to participate. If a student is absent on the day of the random test, a sample shall be collected on the next random testing date. A student who refuses to be tested when selected, or who is determined to have tampered with a sample, shall be deemed to have a positive test result and should be subject to the appropriate consequences depending on previous positive test results, if any. So if they're here and they skip out or they refuse to cooperate, then it'll be as an assumed positive. If they're already absent, then they'll test the next time. Drug testing is a 4-step process. The first thing will be the collection, and that's a urine sample. Students selected for testing will be escorted to the testing site and will remain under supervision until a sample is provided. Samples will be taken behind a restroom stall. An adult of the same gender shall be present when the samples are collected, and that will be an adult from the company. Then there's the screening. That's when they take it back to the lab and they screen it. If they have a positive test, they will run another test to confirm that result, and then there is a review officer that goes over that if it is confirmed positive. The positive test result. An initial positive test will be confirmed before being reported as positive. A medical review officer from the testing lab will contact the student's parent. If the required and appropriate medical documentation is provided within 3 days, the MRO will report the new result as not positive. Without the appropriate medical documentation, the MRO will report a positive test result to the school administrator. So let's go back to that just a minute. If you have a student, like say they recently had surgery and they're on prescribed medication and they test positive, then you're asked to provide a copy of that prescription. Some students may be on certain medications for whatever reason. If it shows up in this, that's why they will contact you, and you have 5 days, I believe. 3. Okay, you have 3 days. Yeah, 3 days to get that copy of that prescription to them. So I highly recommend it to the kids the other day, and I'll do the same thing to you. If your students are on something that might show up in one of these tests, if you see the doctor over the summer for something, try to make sure you keep a copy of the prescription so that you have that readily available. Otherwise, you'll need to contact the doctor's office. A conference, so then if you've been notified and then we get notified, then we set up a conference. Will be scheduled with the student and the student's parent, an administrator, and the coach or sponsor of the extracurricular activity to discuss the test result and the consequences, provisions of the drug testing program. So these are the consequences on the first offense. The student shall be suspended from any affected extracurricular activities and parking on campus for 15 school days following the date the student and parent are notified of the test results. During the period of suspension, the student shall be permitted to participate in practices. After serving the suspension, the student will regain eligibility and shall be retested on the next 3 random test dates. Consequences of positive test results shall be cumulative throughout the student's enrollment at Fall City ISD. So nowhere in there did you see anything about discipline consequences, because that's not what this is about. This is about protecting kids and getting them help if they need that. So second offense, hopefully we won't have any of these to deal with. The student shall be suspended from any affected extracurricular activities and parking on campus for 45 school days following the date the student and parent are notified of test results. During the period of suspension, the student shall be permitted to participate in practices. After serving the suspension, students will regain eligibility and shall be retested on the next 3 random test dates. Third offense, the student shall be suspended from participation in any extracurricular activity and parking on campus for the remainder of their students' enrollment at Fall City ISD. Consequences. If a student's suspension is not completed by the end of the school year, the student will serve the suspension during the first semester of the following school year. So if they get a positive, like right now, then they would finish serving that out when school started the next fall. Use of the results, drug test results, shall be used only to determine eligibility for participation in the affected extracurricular activities and parking privileges. Positive drug test results shall not be used to impose disciplinary sanctions or academic penalties. If a student's grade will not be affected in any course associated with the extracurricular activity. If participation is included as part of the student's grade, the student is required to satisfy attendance and course requirements for the required grade. So for example, if you're required to be at, say, band contest as part of your grade, but you're suspended, that cannot be held against your grade. Confidentiality assurances, drug test results shall only be disclosed to the student's parent, and designated school officials who need the information. Drug test results will not be maintained with the student's academic record or student folder. Results will not be transferred to another district. Requirements for students. Attend the annual orientation meeting to be held in August. Parent-student attendance is recommended. And so we've met with our students now. Best opportunity right when school starts, we will meet with them again to explain everything one more time. Before the student is eligible to participate in the affected extracurricular activities or park at the school, the student shall be required annually to sign a consent form agreeing to be subject to the rules and procedures of the drug testing program. If the student is under the age of 18, the student's parent or guardian shall also sign the consent form. And then we have open for questions. Any questions? I'm sure you have some. No? Okay. As a parent, my student was in a school district that had drug testing. It was kind of a comfort thing for me to know that he had a reason not to do that. He's continued to go into college where he's also subject to drug testing. I always share with students that this is a job skill. Many of you know, and you may be subject to this yourself at your own job, but a lot of jobs in the area require you to have a drug screening before you can be employed. These are things that your students can say, I've been passing this for however many years, I'm employable, and the big thing is it can help keep them safe. Like I said, that peer pressure is, we were talking today, that our kids are exposed to peer pressure probably more than we're even aware. And so just to give them reasons to not get involved in something that can have a huge impact on their life, and also to keep the kids here that are not doing anything safe and keep the drugs out of our school system.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the third party that would be doing the testing?
Yes.
And are those third parties, they are subject to the same background checks as like the employee of the district?
Yes. It's a drug testing company, but yes. And we will be like, the way we will do it is we'll call the kids out of class and we'll have adult supervision from our school, like while the kids are waiting. And then the people from the company will be either, if it's a restroom that has multiple stalls and there's room, they'll have their table set up in there. If it's not, then they'll set up outside the door.
What are you going to do if a senior tests positive and doesn't finish his time?
Well, if a senior tests positive, then he won't be able to participate, he or she won't be able to participate until they meet the day requirements. If those day requirements don't expire before they graduate, then they don't expire. But I mean, we're not going to keep them from participating in anything after that because there's nothing left for them to participate in. And graduation is not a competitive type thing, so they would not be kept from walking the stage because of that. This is like we said, there are not punitive consequences within the walls of the school for this. It's just I don't know. I feel certain that most of you feel like, and just as I do, I don't think my kid's using drugs, and if they are, I want to know about it. And so this is it's an awareness piece. I've seen situations where, kids that everybody around thought was as people say, good kid, and things wound up not being so good. So like I said, it's a good way to protect our kids. It's a good way, if they are doing something, then we can be made aware so that we can get them help before they get in a situation where there's no turning back. So I'll let Mr. Pavelli talk.
Some feedback. So also want to, I guess, just reaffirm what Ms. Dunn had said, that, we do have a great school system and we want to keep it a great school system. So this, as a parent going into it, should also increase your comfort level that not only your child is safe, but then also their peer groups that are around them, members of their class, and also the other kids that they're exposed to are also subject to that same test. So it's not only just your student, but it's also their friends, their teammates, everybody else that's in high school. So again, it's a cumulative effort to try to make sure that we're going to maintain the safety of all of our students that are here in Falls City. So just some key takeaways that this will be implemented come the start of the 21-22 school year. So all of those activities, we've got band practices starting at the end of July. Both football and volleyball will get going in early August. So everybody that is included in those groups will have parent consent at that time prior to the start of those activities. Now, they will not be tested until we come back and get started in school, but just wanted to give you guys the information where you know what's happening. And so like I said, that first round of testing, it does not matter if your kid's currently parking on campus or involved in one of those activities that's currently going on at that time, or they may be playing something in the sport or in the spring. Everybody, that first wave of testing will probably be tested sometime in August, I would hope. So August or early September. After that, it's completely random. So whoever is in our testing pool gets sent to this random company, and this is a company who currently does drug testing for multiple schools in our area. They also do our drug testing for our bus drivers. So they are the ones who does the randomized list. So it's not set by Ms. Dunn, it's not set by myself. So whoever, if we have 100 kids in that pool and we're going to pull 25% of them, well, then they generate that list, and that's who gets tested on that date. Law of averages, we'll probably have some of those kids who get tested multiple times in a year, and we'll probably have other kids who may only be tested just that one time. But throughout the year, everybody's going to be tested at least once, and then everybody will be tested, like I said, randomly throughout. Also, it is a collection sample, so the people that will be collecting it are professionals. We're strictly there to just help organize and make sure that things run smoothly. The results, so as soon as you guys, after your student test, if it's a positive test, the MRO will contact you. So just if you have that prescription or your child has been tested, just make sure you submit that. And just going to be honest with you guys, as soon as we get confident there is a positive test, well then that suspension, regardless of what is taking place, whether it be a football playoff game or it's the spring marching contest, that suspension will take place as soon as we're notified regardless. So we will be very, very consistent with implementing that. We think it's a good program to help keep our kids safe. If there's any other questions or anything that you want to ask of Ms. Dunn or myself, we're always available. And like I said, we want this to be a positive for everybody going into next school year. Any other questions or anything that anybody has? Like I said, we met with the kids last week and tried to give them as much the same information, so hopefully they process that. So if they come home and ask you questions, then feel free to contact us and get answers to whatever you may be asking. Other than that, I think that's all we have. Thank you all for coming, and like I said, get the word out. We'll have another one of these meetings on Thursday, and we'll have all this information up on our website. Thank you.